A lot of people will ask me, because I'm a professional photographer, they say like, hey, what camera should I buy? That is by far the most asked question that I get every time. And every time I always just respond with a question to them saying, what are you going to use it for? That's the most important thing. There's a lot of different cameras out there that can do what you need, and it's important to know what you need before you buy one. So I'm going to help you decide what you need, and I'm going to kind of list off a bunch of different specs that you should consider when you're shopping for your next camera, or first camera maybe.
I am never going to financially recover from this.
One thing I should say is that there's kind of three types of cameras. There's photo, video, and then hybrid. Honestly, every camera is kind of like a hybrid. Majority of photo and video cameras are going to be able to do the other as well. Are they going to do it just as well? No, but most photo cameras can also take video. Most video cameras can also take photos. So most cameras are hybrids anyway, but yeah. Here are the specs that you're probably going to want to consider when you're shopping for a camera. These are general specs. The first one is dual SD card slots. I personally think that this is a must for me because I'm a professional. If I'm shooting a wedding and I only have one card and that card dies, well, so do my hopes and dreams of ever shooting another wedding. You know what I mean? So just do yourself a favor, get 2 cards. And the bonus of 2 cards is you can either just, if you need more space, you can just shoot on one and then fill up the other after. Or what I do to be safe, shoot redundant, back them up, and then each photo that you take is written to both cards. Next up, autofocus performance. This is something that's pretty big and saves your butt. And half the time, my camera is so good that I honestly feel like I'm cheating, like I'm a liar, like my camera does half the job for me. But don't tell anybody because I love my autofocus so much. There's a lot of different cameras that do great autofocus. Canon is incredible. I've heard from Omar Gonzalez, I believe he told me that Nikon is up there as well. They're basically, you know, giving Sony and Canon a run for their money, but Sony and Canon have been like the best in autofocus for a while, and allegedly I believe that Nikon is kind of getting there as well. Fuji, I want to love Fuji, but I used an X-T4 and the autofocus was laughably bad.
This is the best video autofocus I've seen with a Fuji camera.
Soon after.
No, it's terrible. Having all of these lenses and really most of them not behaving as I want them to behave was pretty frustrating.
So maybe it's just that model. I've seen videos online where they test different lenses and different lenses have different capabilities with the autofocus, but if autofocus is really something you care about, I would say probably just go with Sony or Canon and then maybe Nikon. I don't know anything about Hasselblad or Leica because I am poor. Next up, low light performance. Low light performance is also something that's really important. More so, I would say, for video. If you're shooting photos and you just open up your shutter, maybe you can get away with it, again, depending on how much shutter speed, you know, if you have a tripod and if you have a flash and, you know, whatever, there's workarounds with photo, but for video, I feel like that's where low light performance is a little more important. So if you're really a big video guy, maybe look into the low light capabilities. I know back in the day when I was shopping around that Sony had the best low light performance. Now, yes, it was by a margin that was not huge, but it was still there, and that is from my recollection from years ago. So maybe things have changed, but Sony does great low light work. So if you're doing a lot of video without a lot of light supplementing your situation, then yeah. Battery life. Battery life is something that is so underrated. I've had small cameras. I bought a Lumix GX85, and although I love the form factor and it was easy to carry around, I didn't like the fact that I also had to carry a charger, I also had to carry more batteries, I also had to buy more batteries, I had to make sure that everything was charged, which you always have to do, but when you have more batteries, you're like, what, did I charge that? It's not. The worst is when you think you have a charged battery and then both are dead and then you're just without a camera for hours. Anyway, long story long, battery life is really important. I think that the Fuji X-T4, although the autofocus was terrible and I got rid of it, I low-key miss shooting with it because I loved carrying it around with me every day, and the battery made that a lot easier to do because it was pretty long lasting. Same with the Sony Z batteries. Mamma Mia Pizzeria. I love them. I don't know if they're the best, but I'm going to say they're the best because they're the best in my heart, okay? I love Sony Z batteries. They last forever. I do think that nowadays things are getting really competitive. You're probably going to find a good battery in a lot of different brands, but I will say that Sony Z battery. Let's see. Screen. Okay, so screen, there's flips, there's tilts, there's stationary, there's touch, which apparently Sony cameras, a lot of them have touch capability, which no, they every time, whatever, doesn't matter. Tilt screens and flip screens are going to be your biggest ones. The tilt screen I actually prefer for photo because it tilts up and it tilts down. However, it doesn't flip out. But the problem with the flip out screen for photo is when you try to shoot low or shoot high, you have to flip it out and then you flip it up. You can't flip it up, and so you have to flip it out and then you flip it up, and then your thing is over here, so you're looking over here, but then you're trying to stay centered here, and it's just this awkward shooting experience. Whereas when you have the screen dead center with the lens, it's much easier to just center up your shot for photo. Now for video, right now I'm shooting on the A7 IV. Autofocus probably hasn't left me this whole time, I would imagine. It's great, but this is the flip screen, so I can see my ugly face on the side, and I can be like, you know, whatever, doesn't matter. But yeah, so if you're looking for video, flip screen I think is probably the way to go because you can monitor yourself, you can make sure no one's giving you bunny ears behind whatever. Photo, honestly, tilt screen is the move. Now, we live in the future. There are some cameras that actually have tilt and flip screens, and it's magical. They look kind of ugly and bulky, but I love that there's the option to do both. But yeah, consider your screen depending on what you're doing. You know, I shoot with the flip screen, primarily photo now, and it's fine. I can get away with it, but I definitely do miss my A7 III's tilt screen for photography, I'm going to be honest. Next up is the sensor size. Now, this is actually pretty big too. Sensor size. So there's a couple different sensor sizes. Medium format, full frame, APS-C, and then micro four thirds. Those are kind of the main ones. There's other ones like 1-inch sensor and whatever, but yeah, those are the big ones. So essentially, I'm going to give you sort of like a visual demonstration here. So sensor size will show how much you can get in onto your sensor. So this right here, let's say this is medium format. Well, then full frame would be something like this. APS-C would be something like this. And then micro four thirds would be something like this. So depending on what you're doing, maybe you want to you know, take that into consideration. For example, let's say I'm doing real estate photos and I need to get back up against the wall and get as much as possible. Well, there's certain situations where I can't back up anymore, so it's crucial for me to get as much as possible as I can. As much as possible as I can. A little redundant, but we're doing one take on this. Micro four thirds, you know, it's going to zoom you in a little bit more. So you can buy a lens, like a super wide lens, to compensate. But if you're doing a lot of wide stuff, I think just getting full frame is going to make your life easier. And again, you could probably get away with like APS-C micro four thirds, depending on how wide your lens goes, because that's going to make a difference as well. But those are just some things to consider with that. And then what's next? What's next? We have the, last but not least, for the general specs on cameras to consider is the ecosystem. So when you buy into a camera, you're buying into everything. I bought Sony, which means I have to get Sony lenses, Sony batteries, Sony flashes. And now if I want to go to Canon, which I kind of do, I want to buy like an R7 just as my daily walk around camera and just hang out with it because I think Canon colors are beautiful. If I want to do that, I got to get the Canon lenses, Canon batteries. It's like a whole thing. So that's something to really consider when you're getting a camera. And one thing that I really love about Sony, this is just sounding like a huge advertisement for Sony, but I'm not sponsored. Please, though, I would love to be one of your alpha shooter whatever fam. But yeah, Sony, the lenses I really love for the E-mount. That mount is awesome because it's been around for a lot and they have a lot of compatibility, and all the E-mounts, so basically all the APS-C cameras are also compatible with the full frame lenses. You can swap the lens. Now it's not going to look exactly the same on the other camera. However, it's great. It really is great, the fact that you can get all those different lenses. But yeah, look into the ecosystem. What are you buying into? Canon has a great deal of lenses with some, you can always buy adapters too. So if you have It might not be the biggest deal with lenses as well, because you can buy adapters, and so I could shoot Canon lenses on my Sony camera, but there is speculation that when you're using an adapter, it can diminish the autofocus performance and things of that nature. So really just your best bet is getting a Canon camera with a Canon lens, or a Sony camera with a Sony lens. Photo, these are some specs you want to think about for photo. First is the electric viewfinder. There's a lot of cameras that don't even have an electric viewfinder. An electric viewfinder is the little thing that you put your eye up to when you're taking a picture. Now you can use the back screen and just see what's on the back screen and click, and if you're used to cell phone photography, that's kind of going to feel a little more like that for you. But real photography was done with a little viewfinder, so you look through it, and now we have electronic ones, and they're great. Or you can get a Fuji X Pro 2 and be a cool lad and have a hybrid viewfinder. But yeah, you can get a bunch of different viewfinders, or you can get no viewfinder. But I will say, if you're taking photos in a bright sunny day, a viewfinder is going to make your life a lot easier than trying to look at the glare on the screen. Burst rate, this is another one for photo. Burst rate, how many photos can you take per second? If you're doing sports, if you're doing wildlife, this might be important to you. If you're doing your pets or your kids, maybe this could be important to you. But yeah, burst rate is how many frames a second when you hold down the trigger can it shoot. A lot of cameras can shoot like 10 or 11, and then there's some cameras that do crazy numbers. But honestly, 10 or 11 frames in a second is pretty good. Like, I think it's per second, and that's just saying that, I'm like, per second? Like, that's a lot of frames. Like, that's honestly, if you're just photographing your life and you're not doing competitive professional sports photography, a lot of cameras are going to have a pretty good burst rate for you, I think. Next up is megapixels. It doesn't matter as much for video. In fact, a lot of video cameras, I think the Sony A7S II has like 12 megapixels or something, but like megapixels are not nearly as big of a deal for video, more of a big deal for photo, and more of a big deal if you're printing stuff or if you want to zoom in really heavily. I had a camera that was 24.3 megapixels, and quite frankly, it was fantastic. I think you could probably get away with prints on a 16 megapixel camera, on a 24 megapixel camera, no problem. But you know, once you start getting into like 40 something megapixels, 60 megapixels, it's really more for, I feel like, the connoisseur or the massive prints, or if you want to just zoom in a crazy amount and have a lot of flexibility with your quality and editing. But for me, keep in mind, for me, the reason why I don't opt for one of those really cool cameras like the A7R III is just because the more megapixels, the more storage space. So yeah, the photos are going to be more beautiful, but you're going to be ripping through hard drives a lot faster because you're just going to be eating up your memory. Anyway, moving on. Where were we at? We're at megapixels and how they don't really matter that much, right? Okay, next up is hot shoe. Does your camera have a hot shoe? You're looking for cheap photo cameras. Some of them are not going to have a hot shoe. And what a hot shoe is, I've said that so many times, I'm sorry, is it's the little thing that you slide your flash into on the top. This wireless microphone is actually being used. The transmitter is in the HS. I didn't say it for your own sanity. You put it in there and it's cool, and it allows you to basically do flash. So if you want to do flash photography and your camera doesn't have a pop-up flash, which is my next note actually, pop-up flash, some cameras will have a little thing that, and then it is a flash, you got it. But hot shoe, if you don't have a pop-up flash, you probably want a hot shoe, and if you don't have either, then you're not doing flash photography most likely. So yeah, that's something to consider, and flash will really step up your game. I would say, I know it seems intimidating and it's less beginner friendly, but I would say that flash photography is going to really step up your game and make you look professional. I know it's intimidating, but don't be afraid of it. Use a flash. It's awesome. I love it. So yeah. Next up is silent shooting. If you're shooting where you want to be quiet, you can't really be loud, and you don't mind using an electronic shutter, definitely you're gonna try to opt for silent shooting, and that is something that not every camera has. Now, nowadays a lot of cameras will, But yeah, silent shooting is something that you should consider when looking at photography specs. Next up, video specs. Mic jack. Does your camera have a microphone jack? If it does, then that's good. That's a plus, because then you can record your video. I mean, you want to do that. Now, you can get away with not having a microphone jack and then having an audio recorder separate, and then just when you go into editing, syncing up your stuff. But trust me when I say that's way more of a pain in the butt. I like that I have a hot shoe with a microphone attached to the audio jack, so now I can talk and it's built into this clip. So when I put this clip on my timeline to edit, the audio is already there. It saves me time. If you're shooting video, just probably do yourself a favor and get yourself a camera with a mic jack. Next up, if you want to get real fancy, if you're really a video connoisseur, I've never used one of these before, but if you're a video connoisseur and you really know what you're doing, you might want a headphone jack. There's some cameras that don't have that, but if you put a headphone jack in, you can monitor your audio, and that's good, and that's fancy, and I should probably try that out sometime, because that's what real video people do when they're on a production that requires it. So headphone jack. Next up, slow motion. Slow motion, this is the fun one that everybody can understand. This is the one that everybody loves. How slow is slow? Like, how slow do you want to be able to go? And then, is there a crop or a no crop? Is it 4K? Is it 1080? Is it 720? A lot of different video cameras will give you a slow-mo option. A lot of them will have one, but it might just be like, you slow it down, you know, by half the speed. So say like 60 frames a second it can go, and it can go in HD. Whereas some of them will be able to slow it like 4 times as much or whatever. Go to like, you know, 240 frames a second, and then, you know, 4K, no crop. So that's something to consider, is how slow is the slow motion? What's the resolution? And then, is there a crop or no crop? IBIS. IBIS for video, that's important. IBIS stands for in-body image stabilization. So that is what's going to make your footage look smooth. So when I carry my camera around and it has IBIS turned on, it looks way less shaky than if I didn't have it on, and it would look like wobbly and it just wouldn't look good. So yeah, IBIS is important. Next up, record limit. And this is the last one that I have on the video specs. Aside from 4K, you know, if it shoots 4K and then up to, again, what frame rate for the slow-mo, we've talked about that, but 4K, look into that if you're interested. But yeah, IBIS, the stabilization, and then record limit. Some cameras will have a record limit, some will not. This A7 IV does not have a record limit, so I can sit here, much like I have been, and just ramble to the camera forever, and it's not going to cut me off and be like, dude, we're done. But my A7 III did. It would stop at like a 30-minute record limit. So that's something to consider if you're doing long-form videos like podcasting or hour-long. Like if you're shooting a wedding ceremony and you don't want to have to run back to your camera and click record and have that little gap in between when it stopped and started recording, I would say, yeah, look for something without a record limit. But those are my specs for what to look into for a camera. There's a lot. There's a lot of different cameras out there, and there are a lot of different, you know, numbers and models, and a lot of them are going to do what you need. So I really think that take that list of things that you could look for in a camera, prioritize them in the order of, am I doing photo, am I doing video, and then what do I care about the most? If you're just looking for a camera to start taking a little bit better photos, really don't stress out. Don't stress out. A lot of the cameras, like the $500 cameras, are going to take nicer photos than your phone. So just don't stress out. I think it's more important to learn photography and learn video, because you'll be able to get good stuff. There's a lot of stuff that I see done that looks really nice and really professional, and it's shot on a phone because people just know what they're doing. So yeah, keep that in mind as well. A new camera is not going to all of a sudden make you a great photographer and make you fall in love with photography. That sounds like weird and condescending to say, because I'm sure you already know that. But yeah, just keep that in mind, because sometimes I myself get caught up in buying cameras. I so many times will shop for cameras that are cheaper than the ones I have, that are not as good as the ones I have, just because I want new gear, and I tell myself if I get this, then I'll carry it with me every day. And while there might be some truth to that, some of it is really just getting fantasy, having the fantasy and getting caught up in all of the mumbo jumbo and analysis paralysis and all that. So that's it. I'm going to stop rambling. This video is long enough. Thank you so much. I hope that this has helped you in some way in how to decide what camera you should buy. If this has, maybe click like and subscribe. So yeah, that's it. I love you so much. I'll see you in the next video. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I hope you take some great pictures, take some great video, and just make some great stuff. Enjoy being creative, have fun. It's so nice to have an outlet, and just don't worry about what other people are doing. Also, I love Instagram because it's so inspiring, but also I feel like it's sinister and insidious with how it creeps in the insecurities and that person's better and this person, and it's like, just go have fun. Doesn't matter. And yeah, see you in the next video.